Ask Reddit by Thelexis Cardle 1. What is a dirty little secret about an industry that you have worked in, that people outside the industry really should know? Wash the top of your cans. Mice poop on those things all the time while they are in warehouse or transit. Not all that much of a secret, but I used to work in a peanut butter factory. We produced about 25-30ish different store brands ranging from very cheap to stupidly expensive. We had a grand total of 3 recipes. Chunky, not chunky and no additives. Peanut butter should taste like peanut butter. I worked at a major jewelry company in the US. When we wanted to buy jewelry, we paid what it costs to make the product, material, labor, shipping, plus 10%. I paid around $115 for a pair of $950 diamond earrings. I worked wholesale diamond sales, so I had connections throughout the entirety of the industry. Made my wife's 15k plus engagement ring for about 3k. High volume recruiters spend an average of 10 seconds looking at a resume. You are a perfect fit for this job title that's not remotely close to what you have done in the past. Position based on your experience at company. We touch your food with our hands. Weird. And yes, we wash them so often that they might fall off. That, or you get assholes that wear gloves for 12 hours and never change gloves or wash their hands. It's so beautifully arranged on the plate you know someone's fingers have been all over it. Julia Child. I work in the cannabis industry. The decertified labs that test for compliance and potency are wildly inaccurate. We've sent tests to 7 different labs of the same material and received 7 different potency results. Las Vegas casino security. People kill themselves a lot in Las Vegas. They are always snuck out back and guests rarely find out. So you are talking about hotel rooms and not in the middle of the casino floor amongst the game slot machine? Zoos and museums are universally held together with double-sided tape. The size or prestige of the organization doesn't matter either. You guys can afford double-sided tape? They put little weights in lipsticks to make them feel more expensive so they can charge more. Same for Beats headphones. HVAC guy here. Not really a secret, but homeowners sure think it is. Change your fucking filters. 90% of all HVAC problems can be prevented by changing filters, cleaning coils and doing an occasional hard reset. If you don't take care of your equipment, that's when shit goes south. If you're ever buying bulk gravels and crushed stone from a local pit quarry that has scales to weigh the amount of product you're getting fucked because you're paying for water. Most of these pits quarries spray the living fuck out of their stockpiles before during operation to make the material heavier in the truck. Never buy by the ton, always buy aggregate by the cubic yard. It's a measure of volume, not weight. Source: I own a rock crushing business, multiple quarries, and I charge by the cubic yard to not screw the public. Sneaky: I always thought this was done to reduce dust. When the health inspector shows up, a mad scramble happens in the back to clean the kitchen while they start the inspection in the dining bar area of the restaurant. Yup. One manager will hold the health inspector up in the front of house while back of house is busy labeling and making sure minor violations they visibly see are dealt with. My billable hours are not the actual hours. Been there. Especially if you have a quota. There is a lot of money spent every year that decides where specific items are placed on grocery store shelves. If you're at a grocery store that's part of a chain, and you look at a shelf and there's an item that's approximately at our level, I guarantee you that the company that makes that item paid a lot of money to put them there. There's lots of weird psychological tricks that go on in terms of how stores are laid out. It's no coincidence candy is at a lower R level too. If it's the first time a professor is teaching a course, there is a good chance they are just one lecture ahead of the rest of the class. and we usually vastly overestimate what's reasonable for people to understand in the course, so the first few years are usually harder, with the final exam marks significantly massaged while we cut out the portions of the course that are too difficult. If your business uses an inventory company, your numbers will not be correct. When I worked retail, we used to hire temps from our GIS to help us. We had to stop because they were so incompetent that they actually made the job take longer than if we did it ourselves. Ex-farmer here specifically. I worked at a bio-certified one since there were no pesticides or herbicides used. Every snail, every bug, every mouse had to be killed manually or by having a lot of their natural predators around, i.e. cats. The reason nobody buys tomatoes, or anything else with snail bites on them. How do you train the cats to eat the snails? Edit, never mind, French cats, duh. Edit the second, thank you all for awards. And now this is my most upvoted comment. I can live with this. People like to think that data analytics is some objective truth when there is so much bias and room for subjectivity in data collection, analysis, interpretation, and communication. Oftentimes insights are cherry-picked datasets deliberately presented to make a specific point rather than having the data craft the conclusion. The numbers don't lie, but the liars do the numbers. Locksmith here. We can get into any locked door within 30 seconds. All the posturing and bringing out our impressive toolkit and hammer drill is just showmanship to prolong the call out. 30 seconds flat. I'll never forget when my neighbor in London locked herself out. We waited for a locksmith to come over. He literally opened a car door, looked at the neighbor's front door from a distance for about 2 seconds, then pulled out a long bent rod, walked to the door, stuck it through the letterbox, maneuvered it around for a couple of seconds, and the door was open. He undid the bolt from the inside. 100 quid, 15 seconds of work. But you don't pay for the 15 seconds, you pay for the decade of practice required to do the job in 15 seconds. Microsoft Excel runs the country. Microsoft Excel runs the entire global financial industry. Aerospace has a phrase, get healthy in maintenance, underbid the contract to win to the work, then they overcharge on the maintenance activities. It's an investment strategy that pays well. Many aerospace sites have cash cows, long-term maintenance contracts that keep the money coming into the site. BTW, this is one of the reasons DOD spends so much. I've worked as a DOD contractor, weapons testing, and you could write and sop on the wasteful and unscrupulous tactics. Edit, great responses. I worked with artillery testing, tanks, in the AZ desert. Let's just say that we ate through tanks, trucks and ammo like popcorn. We bought a brand new $70 K4 Raptor, and blew it up with artillery. When you go somewhere that has novelty beer dispensers that you and a group can take to your table, just know they are incredibly difficult to clean thoroughly and there's probably mold in there. Can confirm. Fucking hated those things on a closing shift as a bartender. A very popular local bagel shop bakery I worked at advertised all of our baked goods were homemade, dozens of muffins, Danish, cinnamon rolls eked, and they were not, they all came from Cisco, frozen on sheets. Many customers would rave about the baked goods saying they were the best they've had, God bless them. There was this little Italian restaurant in town that I loved growing up. I loved it so much that, when I was between jobs after high school, I got a job there. Those famous homemade cannolis that I loved so much came frozen in a big white box with Acme or some shit printed on the side. Oh, and they smoked in the kitchen. Wash all of your new clothes. A very high percent has been worn and returned. Always wash new clothes. You never know who or what manhandled them. You don't get the healthcare you need or deserve unless you advocate for yourself. Same goes for your loved ones. When an app pops up with a "do you like this app" thing, The yes button goes to the App Store for a review, the no button goes to an internal complaint process. This on average filters upset customers away from the App Store and artificially raises app score by a whole star on average. That is the only way most corporate service apps have 4 stars. Long time ago the company I worked for would only show this pop up if we detected things were going well in the app, no errors, etc. So even seeing the prompt in the first place is already biased towards people who are likely to rate positive. Nobody who actually sorts mail gives a shit about your package. The word fragile doesn't stop them from throwing it 20 feet into a metal container. It's really fun to pay $145 extra for hazmat shipping and see this box with explosive in big letters on the side show up at your front door with a big dent in the corner. Bedbugs are actually incredibly common in hotels. It's just that nicer hotels generally have better means of treating them. Like an exclusive bedbug spa? I used to work as a secretary at a roofing company. A common practice of scumbag roofing companies, in regards to rubber row home roofs, if your neighbor calls a scumbag roofing company and they fix their roof and then not long after you or another neighbor's house starts leaking, there's a terrible possibility that the scumbag company went out and knifed a hole in your roof. And X200B. They do this because your neighbor may recommend their company to you as their roof is no longer leaking. Scummy move. We fixed a leak ourselves and found it was caused by a big ol' nail. I wonder. I work in childcare. If your child has a milestone first at the center, we don't tell you. Taking first steps is the one that sticks out the most. I used to work in the infant room at a childcare center. I 100% would ask if they've rolled over said mama etc. because they seemed really close today. Keep an eye out for that, when really the kid did it 5 times that day. If OSHA ever pays attention to small breweries, the entire industry is going to be shut down. Edit, me, checking this comment just now. https://tenor.com/bonatem.gif. It's not an OSHA violation, it's a wild ale. Life coaches need life coaches the most. No one should really be hiring life coaches unless they love to give away money. There's no real licensing body, education, expectations, etc. It's literally just random people who like giving advice. Reddit gives crappy advice for free, might as well try that first. Whenever you see a high-profile person publishing an opinion piece in a news outlet, 9 times out of 10, they didn't write that. The author came up with a 1-2 sentence concept of what they wanted to say. Their second in command engaged whoever the ghostwriter is. The ghost created the copy. The high-profile person's number 2 reviewed for necessary changes. The high-profile person themselves reviewed and signed off. And the number 2 engaged marketing people to place the piece in a news outlet. If you see an article from a CEO, a senior VP, a member of an elected body, anyone with status, they don't write their own stuff. This is not inherently bad. Organization leaders are busy, and they have the resources to have a team oversee their public-facing thoughts, so they don't have to worry about it. Still, the opinion pages of just about every news outlet in America, and elsewhere, are populated largely by ghostwriters. Source: I'm a ghost. More product hits the floor and then thrown back on the line than you know. Source: worked in a meat packing plant. I got fired from a local grocery store because I wouldn't use chicken that fell on the floor. I was the chicken fryer and the lady training me told me to just throw it the fryer cause the oil will clean it. This lady pulled the fryer out to grab a piece that had fallen on the floor and told me to run it under the sink and put it in the fryer. I called the health department the day they fired me. This isn't necessarily a dirty little secret, but I work in a clinical laboratory at a big hospital. There is absolutely no difference between pregnancy tests you get from the dollar store vs the $20 clear blue at CVS. They have the same exact technology. Also, we use cheap ass pregnancy tests in the lab. Please save yourself, if you're in the US, that $1,000 ER visit and get a cheap ass pregnancy test. I promise they are no different. The ice cream machine is not broken. No one put it in its cleaning cycle when it needed to be, so they're locked out of it until they do the whole cleaning process. There is very little math in investment banking. Trading, however, is different. They put up all kinds of gates to keep people out to choose the best, but all you need is good grooming and arithmetic. 75%, based on personal experience, of the people working on volume build housing sites in the UK, think Persimmon, Bloor etc., give zero fucks about the quality of their work as long as they get paid, and don't have to go back and put it right. This is the same in the US, even in high quality home builders. Yeah, everyone in the Seattle area buying the overpriced Curtis Lang home? It's built like shit with the people that builded their homes. Post-COVID recycling in America basically does not exist anymore. No one is taking the end product anymore, so massive yards of processed material is sitting and degrading. Or is just collected with and merged into the regular trash stream. None of your restaurant food is made with love. Anger and anxiety is what made that muffin, Tina, don't you forget it. With a healthy dose of nicotine and probably coke. Hotels don't change the comforter on the beds in between guests unless there's a noticeable stain on it. If the pillows are placed on a chair instead of on the bed at checkout, housekeeping assumes they weren't used and puts them back on the bed without changing the pillowcases. All of this is due to cutting corners in housekeeping because the keepers are under strict timers for each room, and they have an insane amount of rooms to do every day. Hampton advertises that they change the comforter between guests. That made me really uneasy when I first heard it because it was like, shouldn't that just be expected? Wells Fargo, and other banks, WF is just the worst I've had experience with. Likes to come up with ways to illegally charge you fees. They then eventually get sued, pay a fine that is less than 1% of the profit they made on those fees, then finds a new slightly different way to fuck you some more. Rinse and repeat. Find a good credit union. Mega banks are all screwing you over. I work for a credit union, can confirm. Almost daily I have people say to me some variation of wait, there's no fee for that. Nope. Credit unions are not for profit. We're not out to get you. Get away from the very much for profit big banks. The casket industry is a massive ripoff. While in the process of buying a car, the finance manager will openly discuss your financials, especially if very good or very bad, with most of the staff thereafter. The closed door meeting is mainly a disguise to make you feel comfortable so you will buy add-ons. In reality, you will get shit talked around the dealer if you have bad credit or they discover something interesting when running credit. At the 3 dealers I worked at in 2 different states at the end of HS and through college, every single one was the same. God knows how much actual personal info gets tossed around haphazardly. I'll never finance through a dealer manufacturer because of it. As a side note, these finance managers rarely ever have a background in finance. It's a lucrative position that most have to work their way up to, if you can deal with the hours. They're just seasoned car salespeople. In high school, I worked in a warehouse for a major shipping company, loading semi-trucks with packages. I saw a lot of people who didn't care or would get frustrated because of the work environment and start throwing packages, stepping on them, disregarding fragile labels, being rough with packages that obviously contained high-value stuff like laptops and TVs. 1. If you ship something, make sure you package it with sufficient bubble wrap. 2. When a package is delivered to you, that box is filthy. You should probably wash your hands after opening it and do not set it on your bed or kitchen table. The insane markup on manufacturing cost to retail for prestige brand gold and silver jewelry, engagement rings aren't nearly so bad. With the cost of lab-grown diamonds literally hitting rock bottom, $200 $300/carat, jewelry stores are making money hand over fist. I work in a high-end jewelry store. Our normal margin for mined diamonds is 61%, but with lab diamonds our typical margin is 70-75%, and our clients are thrilled with the prices. The Defense Department literally just spends money to spend it without any actual purpose, just so they can say it was spent so they don't receive less next year. In my building with 10 men, the men's restroom was gutted and remodeled 3 times in 3 years. This is true in almost all areas of government and in a lot of other business as well. So wasteful. In the consulting world, nobody really knows what they are doing. It seems that firms hire consultants so they can have a scapegoat if their projects fail. I've worked in the music industry for 10 years and have access to financials of nearly 15% of all artists' recorded music revenue. Nobody is making as much as you think. The superstar artists who look like millionaires are not, in fact, millionaires. Jared Reddick of Bowling for Soup stated that they had never made any money from music. The money they have made came from tours and merchandise. Worked in a distribution center for a major US clothing retailer. We took in a lot of clothing returns, and to cut our costs we almost stopped inspecting the clothing altogether. If the plastic packaging isn't manufacturer labeled plus sealed and is a generic plastic sealed bag, there is a good chance someone else wore that before and it was not cleaned. If you order clothing online, please give your clothing a double check and wash them before you wear them.